not much knowledge or maybe no knowledge at all to getting into the DevOps sort of industry?
So this is where you start, because I jumped already to this fancy tools rather than building my solid foundation, and it was a huge mistake. So we have Linux, you have networking, a little bit of security, what are the most common attacks, what are the network appliances. So DevOps can be really many different things, and I have friends that are also DevOps but in a completely different profile than I am. When I write the script or when I record something, I'm always thinking twice, is it really correct command, or do you really use Ansible this way?
You haven't really learned it unless you are able to teach it.
You can build so much great stuff with these technologies, but you need to be open-minded and ready to challenge yourself a little bit.
Hello and welcome to the Tech Certified podcast. I'm your host, caleboni.certified, and this is the Tech Certified podcast once again. We have another exciting guest joining us today. Our guest is a DevOps engineer, and he's also a creator online who goes by the name Net Coffee with Simon on YouTube. He has some great content online that helps people understand cloud, networking, and DevOps, and the tools and technologies involved in that. Simon, how are you doing today?
Hey, Caleb, and hey to everyone who's watching. I'm super excited to be here and super happy. So let's kick off this great tech conversation.
Amazing. I'm super excited to be talking to you. Thanks so much for joining us, Simon. And to start off, I'm just going to ask you to just give an introduction and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So hi everyone, my name is Simon, and thank you, Caleb, for this excellent introduction. I'm currently working as a DevOps engineer with the primary focus on on-prem infrastructure. However, also I have tons of interest in the cloud-native environment. My professional background is mostly rooted in telecom and networking, a little bit of security, so a little bit of that. But these networking fundamentals really gave me a strong background to excel in my current DevOps role. What can I also say? I currently work in Copenhagen, Denmark, although I'm Polish. I'm also creator on YouTube with a channel called Net Coffee with Simon, where I try to, with the aim to make tech more accessible, enjoyable through discussions, lab work, and demonstrations.
Of course. Amazing introduction. And I'm looking forward to this. So first things first, I'll start by getting you to just give a brief walkthrough of your journey in tech. Just from your introduction, so many areas that you sort of worked in and pick up, and even your knowledge you share on, of course, DevOps, which you're in now, and your networking background, and even your knowledge of cloud. So if you could give us just a brief walkthrough of your journey getting into tech and getting to where you are now.
Yeah, sure. I'm not going to talk about the high school and about my when I was a teenager. So I'm just going to jump into the bachelor period, because I initially graduated from mechatronics engineering. So, PCB boards, mechanics, but it was absolutely not my world. And everything changed when I got my first job, a little bit by accident, in Nokia. Actually, it was my first sort of student assistant work, and I love it. And for the first day, I really love it. However, the problem was, Caleb, that I really lack of this domain knowledge, this IT telecom knowledge. And telecom can be really intricate and really multi-layered. This LTE 5G products, that are very difficult. So I've left the position, and I decided that I need to have some more IT background. So I made my master in IT here in Denmark, Copenhagen. And since then, I had a few different roles, also including 5G and a little bit of security. But at some point of my career, I decided that, this DevOps stuff and cloud infrastructure engineering is really taking off. It's an amazing career path. I also had some colleagues and friends that were, doing DevOps and cloud. So I thought maybe I should really, maybe a little bit transition from pure networking telecom into the purely IT domain, which I think it was successful because I finally got a job in DevOps. However, also, as I said, I had the good networking background, so that helped a lot when you are working as a DevOps engineer. Probably we're also going to talk about that. However, I think in this whole DevOps cloud infrastructure sort of domain, a little bit what is missing is this, focus also on networking, because it's also very critical part of the whole, cloud or on-prem setup, whatever.
Yeah. Amazing. And that's really interesting because I could see the the relation between
Mhm.
the telecoms and tech and IT, right? But then mechatronics, I have a friend who actually studied it, and that was the first time I was like, mechatronic, what does
Yeah.
that mean? Yeah, it's really interesting how you went from that,
Mhm.
and now you're here. And
Yeah.
so that journey is so, you've tried several different things to get to where you are.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind, like what was the driving factor in you wanting to move into IT?
When I was doing bachelor, it was already a few years ago. IT was really taking up in Poland, and they were opening tons of new positions, and where IT was sucking in everyone. And I just, was, let's say, lucky a bit that I was in a good time and the right place, and I got this position, and I think it really paid well. It's still paying well, that also. You talk about with your guests, and I really like the fact that it's such a well-developed industry. You have the certifications, you have a different career paths, you have so many materials online, also including your channel, of course, where people share their experience in IT, and this is just incredible community. And there's also so many materials that can help you to grow your skills. And if you don't know something, you can just spin up the VM on AWS, on an Azure, and just do some labs in whole by yourself.
Yeah, so true. So many resources out there to, like, even just inspiring you to want to get into this industry, even like you, Simon, with your channel, inspiring people to have a better understanding and knowledge of certain areas in tech, and even wanting to pursue it from there. And the same for loads of other channels, and the content is there, right,
Absolutely,
to
absolutely.
learn online.
You
So
know,
that's
also,
amazing.
what I also really like is the fact that people that are more senior, like the Fayomi from Cloud Career podcast
Mentor.
mentor, right? That was
Yeah.
in your episode. He shared, the steps on, how you can also be there. So this is just
Mm.
so fantastic that people more senior want you also to succeed in your role, and they want to
Yeah.
give you the knowledge, give you the feedback, absolutely for free. This is just fantastic, fantastic stuff, fantastic community.
Exactly. And for the audience, if you want to check out that episode, it's episode 1 of the podcast. Just check it out.
It
I'll
was really good.
I'll leave a link.
It was really
I'll
good.
leave a link
I
somewhere.
recommend it to everyone.
Great episode. Fahmi's great. Are you looking for a reliable cloud service provider with developer-friendly service plans without any tripwires or trap holes? Let me introduce you to UpCloud. UpCloud is a pioneering European cloud provider that does not charge for internet traffic. That's right, no hidden fees for data transfer, offers 24/7 real human support, and has global availability within 13 data centers around the world. Whether you're an individual developer or a growing business, UpCloud's cloud-native product portfolio covers your unique needs. From small projects to larger deployments, offering high-performance servers with easy self-service options. UpCloud wants to support your cloud journey and offer you €50 free credit along with a 7-day free trial. Sign up now with my promo code caleboni50 and go to the link in my description. Thank you to UpCloud for sponsoring this video. Just to move on, we did mention certifications. So I wanted to talk to you about that. And I know you put out some content on, different roadmaps and also certification roadmaps. And I just wanted to ask you, for your experience in your career, you know, how have certifications actually helped you personally in your roles and on your journey?
The opinions are very diverse when it comes to the certifications. However, my take when it comes for the certs is quite positive. I really like doing them, and because of two reasons. First of all, in companies that are releasing certifications like Cisco, Microsoft, Amazon, whatever, they are preparing you really an excellent learning path. And this is
Yeah.
just very important for you to, instead of narrowly focusing on some specific aspect of engineering, you start from the broad and then you gradually dive into some intricate details. So this general to detail approach is can be very, very beneficial for any aspiring engineer. I remember, for example, that when I was doing CCNA certification, a networking one, you
Yeah.
start with a very sort of high level, like let's say this is internet, and these are different network elements. This is router, and then you dive the one level deeper. Router does routing, and then you ask yourself, okay, what's routing? You dive deeper into different routing protocols, which can be really intricate and can be
Yeah.
really difficult to understand. So without making this one step back to understand, this bigger picture, it's really difficult to understand some details. So I think this is what makes certification such great asset in your CV or in your knowledge, is that you can build your knowledge from the general point of view to the very detailed point of view. Some time ago,
Yeah.
I made the AZ700 Azure certification on networking. And when I was reading the stuff, it was like, oh my God, this is really like advanced stuff. First, before I did 700, I did 900, the fundamentals.
Yeah.
And I really felt like the fundamentals give me really the basic and the very solid foundation to jump, to another level. I think you also made the administrator exam. So
Yes.
you
Azure
also you
administrator. Yeah.
also did your fundamentals exams, right? So I guess you can agree
Exactly.
with me that going directly towards this architect or this administrator certifications without first establishing a basic knowledge is really difficult.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's so true.
Yeah. So this is the first
Yeah.
one, this the structured learning path, And the second thing that I also wanted to share with you is the fact that once you have the certification in your CV, it really proves, your commitment to growth. So that signals to the hiring manager that you are willing to learn and spend some more time, and you're proactive in acquiring knowledge. So I think, whether you started every time when you start a new position, you need to learn new stuff, new technologies, new processes, how to work with people, all the stuff. And
Yep.
certifications really proves and signals to the hiring manager that, this guy is really willing to learn. And this is so important, because in this new position, regardless how good software developer or tester or security specialist you are, you still need to learn. So that is very important to tell your manager that, hey, I'm proactive. I want to learn. I want to discover new stuff. And this is just so important in tech, to be on this constant learning journey.
Amazing. Amazing. And there's a couple of things that I kind of picked up on that you said that were really valuable. For one is, these are the companies. This is Microsoft who are creating this. This is Amazon. This is Google that are creating these certifications, right? And they're going through their technology and say, okay, what's the basic? Where
Mm,
can we start? Where can someone start learning this? And then it can show you, if you want to dive in deeper, this is how you do it. And just as you said, I took the AZ900. This is like the first cloud certification thing I did, and that gave me a good foundation. And when I was working in the role of an Azure administrator and I did the certification, it was really, really impactful. And it was like, this is the key to exactly what you're doing. You're
yeah,
learning so
exactly.
much about
Yeah,
what you're
yeah.
doing.
I agree. I
And
agree.
and also, in addition to what you said in the second point, it shows how proactive you are, because like in applying for jobs, I remember applying for like my first cloud job, and they were looking for graduates, people who finished university. They had no expectation of, oh, they've done certification, they've done this, they've done that. But I've said it in videos before. Just because I had the AZ900, they were like, "Oh, wow, you're one step ahead
Yeah, absolutely.
of the candidates that you're up against, right?" And AZ900 is really like the foundation, right?
Mhm.
But even that really gave me a boost in terms of applying for roles, which is
Yes.
amazing.
Yes. Yeah, I
So
agree. I
yeah,
agree.
really, really good
Yeah.
points.
So this is really, I think some people say like, criticizing certifications. Oh, this is just another badge. You can just put on your CV. It has no meaning. I disagree. I think it actually has a lot of meaning. And it not maybe even when it comes for the knowledge, but when it comes for you as a person, which is also equally important at the job interview, not only from the technical point of view, but also from your personal point of view, like who you are you willing to learn, are you open to feedback and learn new stuff. So I really like certifications. I have to say, I always have few in the pipeline. So
Yeah, no, so true, and I really agree with what you said.
mm,
That I feel like there was a period that people are like, don't do certifications, do this instead. But I feel like, yeah, obviously there's going to be a balance of certifications and trying it out, like you said, spinning up the VM,
Mhm.
or, doing the actual work, getting the trial license,
Mhm.
trying this stuff out, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
so a good balance in those things is
Absolutely,
is really
absolutely.
good. So
Maybe just the last one thing when it comes for this training versus learning for the certification, because what I also discover when you are at the Microsoft Learning page and you study for the new certification, you also have lab, and they showing you
yeah.
exactly what to click, where to click, how to do stuff, and that helps a lot. Where you just simply follow someone, and this is just incredible when they already pre-made material for you. The only thing that you have to do is just copy paste, do the same, and you still learn. So this is just companies like Microsoft or Cisco, the companies that I did the certs I have experience with. They put a lot of effort into your hands-on practice, so you actually
Mm.
do something more than just read theory.
Now that's amazing, and that's some really good advice on just like certifications. I feel like we've really covered it
Yeah.
properly, which is great. So for the audience listening, I hope that's provided some insight on your path and what you're doing. Um, and just to move on,
Yeah, sure.
I wanted to talk about
Mm.
the sort of target audience for this podcast, right? Most people watching this are people who are either early careers
Mhm.
or who are trying to get their first roles in tech,
Mhm.
or maybe not even their first roles in tech. Maybe they're working,
Mhm.
in IT support or
Mhm.
junior roles, and they want to sort of get into a higher role, or
Mhm.
um, get into the cloud from IT support, whatever the case may be. And I just wanted to ask you, Simon, whilst we have you, what your advice is on
Mhm.
getting into the tech industry for
Well,
those aspiring people.
mhm.
Yeah.
Well, at first I have to tell you, Caleb, that you had so many great guests already, and there was just so many great advices given when I was listening to the previous episodes.
Yeah.
So many was already said, so it's difficult for me to add something more. However, when I was
Yeah.
reflecting, when I reflect upon that, I would say that there is something that Fayomi said from the Cloud Career Mentor in the first episode, and he said,
Yeah.
"Learn Linux." If there's like one universal advice I can say is just learn Linux. And really, regardless what is your scope of work or where do you target to be, whether it's on-prem, cloud, whatever, it's a software testing, software development, it's really learn Linux. And it was, I have to say that right away, it was my mistake that I didn't learn it earlier.
Mm.
Because even now already having the position, so I have some, knowledge about Linux, but I see the more I dive into it, the better engineer I really am. And one of the mistakes also I made was when I was starting study for this DevOps stuff and I started to be interested in domain. Unfortunately, one of the first thing I did, I just jumped directly to this, all the fancy tools like Ansible, Terraform, AWS, and I
Yeah.
was so proud of myself that I was able to configure something. But in the reality, I really lack of the basics. I really lack of this Linux basics that I didn't have. So in my first if you want to break into the IT, and of course it's difficult to give the universal advices. However, it was my mistake not to learn Linux, but learn it good. But not just CD, LS, whatever. But just really try to dive into the system, read the logs, play with it. It can be really, really fun. So, for example, CompTIA, Linux Plus, that's an excellent starting point. And just I want to also say that even if you will get the job in the industry and in IT, of course, not necessarily you might work with Linux, but it helps a lot. It helps a lot.
Mm.
This is really the operating system for the servers. You need to know that it's a backbone for the automation, for Docker, for really for everything. And one more thing I also wanted to share. Regarding getting into the IT, Caleb. So
Yeah.
basically, I would say that really, if you want to break into the industry, try to do as many labs as you can. So because a lot of people, I feel like they are a little bit afraid of actually doing hands-on. They are a little bit
Right.
afraid of, I will fail or it's too difficult or whatever. I remember when I was preparing for CCNA, and part of the CCNA exam is also hands-on practice. You need to configure router, you need to do, read some
Mm.
interface stuff. So it's not only ABCD. it's also actually you have to configure stuff. And when I passed the exam and I, was speaking with people on the Facebook group, people were asking me, "Oh, did you have any labs? Like, how many labs did you have?" As they were really afraid of it. I don't really understand why, because really labbing is the best part of it. So really, I would encourage people. This is something that I also try to do with my channel, to show that labbing can be really fun, can be really easy, and can be really, really creative, because you can do tons of different stuff. And if you don't know how to do stuff, there are just, again, coming back to the first questions that we discussed, so many materials online. Even if you type in ChatGPT, "Hey, write me some simple Ansible project," you can just rewrite the code, and bam, you have it. You made some simple stuff. So I would say the first thing, if you want to break into the IT, learn Linux, and second thing, don't afraid to lab in home. I hope it wasn't too long.
Amazing. No, 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 amazing. It's a great value for those watching and for those who are aspiring. Learning Linux and learning Linux command line,
Yeah,
and also labbing it, just doing the practical,
yeah,
doing the actual work rather than just the knowledge, just the certification.
yeah, absolutely.
Actually, get your hands dirty,
Yeah,
as they would
exactly.
say.
Because all this is what you are going to do in your position, right? You're not going to make some Excels or presentations or some Word or
Mm,
whatever. If you want to be working as a DevOps or cloud security engineer or the network administrator, you will have your hands dirty at the end of the day.
yeah.
So without you knowing how to do stuff, it might be really, really difficult. It will be really difficult. Yeah.
Yeah, so true. Thanks for that, Simon. That was a really good, again, covering of that topic, which is great for those listening. We've just launched a free cloud engineer assessment to evaluate and assess your current skills on your path to becoming a cloud professional. Now, when you take this assessment, it provides some incredible recommendations for your path. And remember, this is completely free. It costs you nothing. It only helps you on your journey. So if this interests you and you are an aspiring cloud professional, definitely take this assessment. I'm going to leave a link to it. Here's an example of me taking it myself and getting some pretty good recommendations from my own assessment. So guys, check this out, and I hope this is really helpful. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys later. And speaking of getting into the industry, I wanted to jump on to sort of the DevOps sort of side of things.
Mhm.
I think on the channel and from the guests we've had, we haven't yet dived in on a roadmap
Mhm.
for getting into DevOps.
Mhm.
And I feel like with what you bring, Simon, it's just the perfect person to ask about this stuff. And I just wanted to ask you, what is your sort of roadmap for DevOps for
Yeah.
going from not much knowledge or maybe no knowledge at all
Mhm.
to getting into the DevOps sort of industry.
Yeah, sure. So again, I guess you probably know already guessed the first step, which is of course learning the little penguin OS. Of course,
Yeah.
learning Linux. So this is where you start. This is where you start. Working with the OS. Try to script a little bit in Bash. Or maybe a little bit in Python. A little bit of that. A little bit of that. So again, I'm speaking from my own experience, because I jumped already to this fancy tools rather than building my solid foundation, and it was a huge mistake, really huge mistake. So really start very little, a little bit of Linux, a little bit of Bash scripting here and there, and then once you feel comfortable with it, I would say that still not going to the fancy tools, but try to understand. I'm a networking guy, so I really understand the value that networking brings, understanding of networking brings to the table. Really try to grasp some networking. And I'm not saying that you need to pass CCNA or CompTIA Network Plus, whatever, but you need to really understand, for example, what is TCP IP stack, how, for example, IP assignment works. What is the DHCP server? What is, for
Mm,
example, the SSH keys authentications? These are very, very much important stuff, because when the things breaks, for example, there is no connectivity between the servers. The Ansible script doesn't work because it breaks the SSH key. You need to know how the protocols work. So really try to
right.
little by little by little, try to really understand the engineering basics. So once you have that, so you have Linux, you have networking, a little bit of security, what are the most common attacks, what are the network appliances, Then I would recommend to go to Git, of course, how to do it, how to master the command line in Git. And then you can start simply to build your DevOps pipeline. So then you add another element because you see everything is nicely connected. You can build a really great projects through all the different technologies that you can incorporate. So you have Linux, then you have Git, then of course you can add some CI/CD servers like Jenkins. I really like Jenkins. But there are also some other system. But you can, for example, start to triggering Jenkins with the Git commit. This is very basic stuff, but also gives you so much satisfaction once you really configure it. Then I would say when you know Jenkins and you know Git, then you can start playing a little bit with Ansible, which is really so important. It's so important, for the automation and provisioning of the servers. Because if you have, for example, 50 servers, you're not going to SSH to each of them to change the configuration. You need to have the Ansible script that will do it for you. So, but we can also see how it nicely connects now because Ansible is really about networking, and it's really about bash scripting or Linux. So this is really important to have these basics before we go to Ansible. So try to do a little bit of Ansible. There are just so many great projects that you can build with it. Of course, then we can move on to some, more fancy tools like GCP, AWS. This is again amount of plethora of the different projects that you can just build with it is just incredible. Of course, then we can add in the next step containers, Kubernetes. To be honest, I have to also admit that I don't know Kubernetes that well. I just know, a little bit of the Kubernetes. So it's not that you need to know everything, right? It's not that you need to be master in everything, but you need to know more or less what's that, how to use this, how to configure it. And once you know a little bit of everything, you can do projects like, or this is something that I also wanted to say here in your podcast. You can do projects like Cloud Resume Challenge. I don't know whether you know it, Caleb. So you know this project.
No, no.
So this is the project for the quite famous for project for the people that are wanted to break into the DevOps. So basically, you have a simple code with some basic applications. It's an online CV. This is why it's called resume. So you have an online resume in HTML and CSS, and then you try to build the whole DevOps ecosystem around it. So you, for example, change the code with Git, you trigger the Jenkins pipeline, you push the artifact to container, and then you push it to some kind of cloud container registry on the AWS. And then, for example, you can add some monitoring. So this is a very famous project. We can add the link into the description. So
Yes.
this was what when I was wanted to break into DevOps. That was actually something that my friend recommended me. Like, that you're ready once you have your CI/CD pipeline built for Cloud Resume Challenge. So for a year, I think I studied different technologies, and at the end of the year, I finally took the challenge. I made it, and it was really something big for me because I could put that in my CV with all the different technologies that I used to build it. So a project that nicely encapsulated it's all. It's a Cloud Resume Challenge. Yeah. Quite a long answer.
Amazing. No, no, that's perfect. And for all those trying to get into DevOps and are looking for a roadmap, where to start, where to go, what to learn, that is a perfect sort of roadmap for anyone trying to do that. Even for myself,
Mhm.
one of the sort of goals that I had when I not started, but as I gone on from my career is to move around and get deeper into different things and different technologies.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of stuff that you even spoke about that I haven't even gotten into yet,
Mhm.
and I feel like that's an amazing roadmap even for me.
Mhm.
If in the future I would want to get into DevOps, I just
Mhm.
need to watch this episode again, and and I know exactly what to do to
But
get further into that space.
Caleb, this something else also I have to tell you is that when you look at the DevOps positions, there are just so many keywords. There's so many
Mm,
technologies. It can be really, really overwhelming. And my advice is to not to be overwhelmed, even though it's very difficult, because when you don't need to be master. You don't need to be,
Yeah.
you need to be a professional in every each of the tools. When I started my positions, I knew Ansible. Okay, I knew what is it. I built some projects, but was I, really professional, proficient in Ansible? Depends, So I wouldn't be discouraged by the amount of the tools, and especially you learn it when you integrate it, when you see how nicely everything connects. And there are just, again, thousands of projects on YouTube absolutely for free that you can just,
Yeah.
just copy paste. You spin up the VM, you start your your Jenkins server on the machine, you integrate it with Git, you push the code, to some cloud registry. Bam, you have a simple, DevOps pipeline. It's really, really fun.
Amazing, amazing. And that's a really interesting point. I feel like, one of the key things when we're talking about interviewing, let's say you go for an interview and you're interviewing for any role, like this is not even tech related. It is one of the things that you must say if you
Mhm.
don't know something is, yeah, I don't know, but I'm able to learn, or I'm a great
Absolutely,
learner, or I'm
absolutely,
willing to learn.
absolutely,
And
absolutely.
just show your attitude towards learning things. So that's just a side point and a key point for anyone getting into
Yeah,
any industry,
I agree. I
willing to
agree.
learn these technologies,
Yeah,
even the ones that maybe you have a little understanding and maybe you get caught off with a question in an interview.
mm,
You talk about how great of a learner you are and how willing you are to learn.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
um, yeah,
DevOps can be really many, many different things. And I have friends that are also DevOps, but in a completely different profile than I am. So, it's
mm,
just, for me, it's just impossible to work in their shoes, in their positions. And for them, it'll be impossible to work as I am working with the on-prem infrastructure. So, we always need to find a balance. We always need to find a balance, because learning everything, it's impossible. It's just
yep,
impossible. So, for example, I'm a devil, but mostly specialized in networking. But I'm not
yes,
specialized, for example, in security, let's say. However, I do know how SSH keys work, and I know what's a firewall.
yeah. Amazing, amazing. That is a great, great, yeah, roadmap and advice for anyone, really. So to move on,
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you this one question, which I've asked everyone in every episode so far, and we're not going to stop now.
Go ahead.
I
Go ahead.
wanted to ask you, Simon, what is one interesting career story, interesting good or
Mm,
interesting bad, that
mm.
you have had in your career so far?
Oh my God, man. Few years ago, I found this very just perfectly matching for me a job position. It was a cloud infrastructure engineer, and it has all the technologies that I really wanted to work with, and I was loving that in home. So it has AWS and Ansible and Terraform and Linux and whatever, and I applied for it. I really
Hmm.
applied for it because I really wanted to get it, and they called me for the interview, and I was like, great, great, that's just amazing, because this is something that I really wanted to do. And I was preparing for the interview. I was reading about the different Ansible playbooks. I was reading about the different AWS services, and I was really trying to be as much prepared as I could, you know. And I went for the interview, and the questions they asked me were like, how to create a user in Linux, or like how to add a user to the group in Linux, which is like very basic stuff. Like this is
Yeah.
just one command that you have to know. And or for example, they started to ask me about things about the processes in Linux. How you can check that this process is not a zombie, or like what's the difference between PS and top. And I didn't know. I completely didn't know. I mean, of course, like I did some Linux in the past, when I was doing, was working 1,000 years ago in Nokia or whatever, but I don't remember it now. So, and I failed this job
Hmm.
interview, just because I couldn't answer very basic Linux questions, you know. So, it really made me reflect, about who I am, like who I am when it comes for the DevOps. Like, okay, I do know the fancy stuff, but I really don't know the basics. So this is what the
Hmm.
message that I'm trying to tell to the listeners is that, if you don't know the basic, it can be really difficult. It can be really difficult. This is why. So in the roadmap, I said that the first thing is that you have to learn the Linux stuff. But so I reflected, and I really started to learn the little Penguin OS as much as I could. And it took me a half a year, but just to study, building scripts, finding different folders in Linux, how to work with them, what are the different processes, all the stuff I didn't know. And I got the job as a DevOps engineer, So and I see now how grateful this experience is. I mean, in the way that it really gives me so much now depth when it comes for doing stuff. So I would say that the story is that I went for the interview, I got some simple questions, I failed, and then I came back half a year later, and I got the job. So I hope it was
Amazing.
interesting.
Amazing. No, that's a great story. No, I really appreciate that. And yeah, like for me also, like I have so many similar stories when it comes to
Mm,
just going for a job and not being able to answer. And then, you know what? I'll tell one of them. I think it was when I finished my bachelor's degree. You know, I
mm,
had a whole degree in computing, and I was like, yeah, cool. Now it's time to apply for roles.
mm,
I want to get into cloud, and I applied and went for an interview. I
mhm,
was, graduate Azure something engineer role, and yeah, I went for the interview. Presented myself well, all this good stuff.
mhm,
And there were a lot of questions about Azure. I just couldn't answer, right?
mhm,
And at the time, I was like, I want to get into cloud, but I can't answer anything on Azure.
mhm,
And I failed the interview. They gave me two stages, and then the second stage, they were like, sorry, no, which
mhm,
is fine. But after that, I went home and started getting into Azure, just the foundations. And that was when I came across the AZ900
mhm,
and I did it. And the next interview, Azure sort of interview that came around, I was able to get that role because I learned from the interview that I did. And I was able to go and say, yeah, okay, this is what I need to work on.
mhm.
And for those who are applying for roles, that's literally the framework. You go to an interview, you get things wrong, you get feedback from that interview, you fix up, and the
Absolutely.
next interview,
Yeah.
you turn that around
Yeah,
and make sure
so
you
I,
know.
I can hear that everyone has to go through this type of stuff, and it's very just difficult not to give up. You fail the interview, and you say, okay, I'm not good enough. I'm not going to reapply. I'm just going to stick with whatever I'm doing now. I'm never going to go to IT, or never got my. I will never get my dream job, cloud or infrastructure or whatever that is. But you know what I thought at the moment I felt that something was in my CV that drew the attention. So that means that I still stand a chance in the next job interviews. So my CV was already good enough to be invited for the job interview. So this is the good path that I am on in order to get the position that I want. So yeah,
Yeah.
don't just people just don't. If you listen to this, don't give up.
Amazing.
The
Thanks so
most
much,
simple
Simon.
message, the most simple message, but just so real.
Simple.
Yeah.
Yeah, for real. No way. There is just no way. Some of you guys have been watching this far and have not subscribed to the channel. Others have yet to even like the video. And for the people watching on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, some of you have not even rated the podcast. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you got any value, like, subscribe, and rate the podcast on whatever streaming platform. All right, let's get right back to the video. Thanks so much, Simon. And moving on, I wanted to talk a little bit about content creation and
So
how you started your channel and had some great videos on there.
thanks, man.
um, Net Coffee with Simon. Check it out, guys. But I just wanted to ask you what inspired you to, create content and put out great content online.
Yeah. So basically, there are three reasons why I think it's so fun to create content online, and I think you also experience this continuous learning curve. So of course, when you create content, it really pushes you to stay updated with the latest developments in the tech world. And this is not only beneficial for my development, but also really enhances my professional experience, right? So this is just
Yes.
one great thing. And the second thing, it's something that Venetia from Cyber Queen said
Yes.
in
Cyber
your
yeah.
podcast, that when you answer people questions, that also forces you to reflect upon what you're putting out there. So
Yep.
you put the video, but then you also need to be responsible for what you are saying. So I'm not saying that I'm getting a lot of challenging questions. However, when I write this script, or when I record something, I'm always thinking twice. Is it really correct command, or like, do
Mm.
you really use Ansible this way? Like, am I right? So you start to digging into what you're putting in the script, whether it's correct, what you really saying is true, and it's something that a person or the viewer can use to learn. So I would say this continuous learning stuff, and the challenge when you are challenging yourself with the truth of the content that you put there.
Yep. Yep. Amazing. And a thing that people say is, have you really learnt it? Okay, I don't know exactly how the saying goes, but it's something along the lines of, you haven't really learnt it
Mhm.
deep enough
Mhm.
unless you're able to teach it to someone else,
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely. I couldn't agree
And
more.
yeah, and creating content on the things you're learning,
Yeah,
or the things you've learned long in the past, really affirms what you're learning, and the fact that you can teach it to someone else just means that you know it that well,
yeah,
to that degree, and
yeah,
that
yeah.
just teaching it really helps you do that. So honestly, teaching is learning as well, and I could say that for myself. You
Yeah, I
know,
couldn't I couldn't agree more, Caleb. And for a few of the some of the technologies that content creators try to explain online, these are really complex stuff, like security or Ansible or AWS, whatever. This is really complex stuff. So this is really a challenge to show something that is complex in easy, fun, and pleasure way. You can build so much great stuff with these technologies, but you need to be open-minded and ready to challenge yourself a little bit here and there. But at the end, the benefits are there because you learn the stuff, right?
yes, exactly. That's amazing, Simon. This has been so great. There's so much great stuff and great
Thanks.
tips, advice, and even just your story, and there's so much we've been able to learn from you in this episode today. And honestly, it's been such a great
Thank
episode.
you very much.
And before we close it off, I wanted to just ask you if there's anything that you wanted to share. Oh, you wanted to share, promote, or plug. You can go ahead and do that now.
Yeah, well, I really like your podcast, and I'm not just being nice. I really like it, and all the guests that you have, they gave just me so much value. In particular, Cloud Career Mentor, Cyber Queen, that was very informative to me. So, if you haven't seen, guys, this episode, you have to definitely check it out. I know that you also make the content that is a little bit about the cybersecurity here and there. I also have a one episode with my friend David that can be interesting to your audience, where I talk with him about cybersecurity space, and he recommended. Also, I can send you the links later. Darknet Diaries, the Hacker News, and of course, Cloud Security Podcast, which is, I think, very updated when it comes to the new materials. So yeah,
Yes.
all this cybersecurity stuff. And if someone is interested in learning the networking and DevOps stuff, of course, NetCafe with Simon. Um, yeah, you can check this out.
Amazing, amazing. And everything you mentioned will be linked in the description of this video. Simon, thank you so much for being on this episode. It's been an
Thank you for
amazing
the
episode. So much more to come. Weekly episodes will be out. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys in the next episode.
thanks everyone.